Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to the Divine Messages podcast. My name is T. Oh my gosh, you guys. For real, right here, right beside me, like right here, I can touch her. I'm sitting beside Karina, psychic medium and Reiki master from Calgary, Alberta. How are you?
I'm good. This is like the first time I've had someone in my healing room with me in the last 3 months. So it's so great to be here with you.
You know, it's actually kind of weird to see you because I keep looking at my computer screen instead of looking at your eyeballs. It's hard.
Good.
This is weird.
It is weird,
It's okay.
but so good.
Ah,
I know.
Stop
Yay for
staring.
us. I know.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. All of our podcasts can be found on Podbean, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. So, you know, Karina, we had a whole episode planned for what we are going to talk about tonight. And somewhere, somehow, and I'm still looking at my computer screen instead of looking at you. We are definitely being guided to talk about something different. So what we're talking about tonight is a little bit of a touchy subject. And, well, we're talking about grief tonight. And when people know that you're grieving, it's almost like they're worried about maybe saying the wrong things or not knowing maybe where you are in your particular process of grieving. So grief. This is a little bit heavy maybe to talk about, but maybe you could break it down for us a little bit and explain to us what grief is.
Yeah, there are actually stages to grief. And one is denial, there's anger, there's bargaining, depression, acceptance, and not always in that order. So some people show their emotions and like actually go through that process, and others will completely bottle it up. And it's almost like they pretend those emotions don't exist, so they put it somewhere else. And then it's just stored and then comes out in not so great ways. So I wanted to explain each stage of it, and I think it's important too. So let's talk about denial. So denial is where people are like in immediate shock, and it's almost like they're numb to the emotions. So it's like in disbelief. No, that couldn't have happened, right? They just can't process it. And then there's anger. Now, anger is, that one happens quite a bit. And it could be, where it's aimed at complete strangers, your family or your friends, and you take it out on them. And sometimes people can be angry at the person that actually passed, and like they're angry that they left them, right? Then there's bargaining, and that's where people say like, if only, like that's where the guilt sets in, and they think, well, if only I had done this or I had done that, they'd still be here. And they almost like convince themselves of that. I wish I would have done that, or if only I had, called the doctor on that day. Like people really start bargaining. Then there's depression. So that's missing that loved one so much that they just almost can't feel like they can go on in life. They're struggling so bad, and all they want is that, one more kiss or that one more hug, and the depression part of it can really set in and be really, really heavy, and it's hard to come out of that. And then the last is acceptance. And so acceptance, like if you reach this stage, it really is considered a gift, because not everybody will get there. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to eventually get to that acceptance point. No, some people do. And it's a stage where you actually just learn to live without that person. It's just acceptance, right? You have to form a new way of living, and that's just how you're going to choose to move on. And that one is a gift. That's hard to get to because it's tough.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Okay, so I think you probably have a very unique and special job. Everybody knows that you are a medium. Do you find that connecting to a past loved one helps?
It absolutely can. Like, I feel like it really does bring not even closure, comfort, knowing that people they're not gone. They're really just in another realm. But the person honestly has to be ready to receive the messages.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they're not ready and they show up, it's almost like it becomes a blur, or they could be defensive because they're not ready to hear.
Or scared.
Or terrified. A lot of people are terrified when they come in. It's, they walk in the door and they come in and they're shaking, and I can feel their anxiety, and then they sit down and I look at them and I say, this is what I do, and I explain it, and they just start calming down because the room is really comfortable to be in.
It's
It's
so
very
nice in here.
I love being in this room. I spend a lot of time in here, but it's got a really good energy to it, and I work really hard at that. So when clients do come in, they instantly just start to calm down, and then I think that they also maybe feel a little bit comfortable because I feel like I can talk to them and just, I'm not scary.
Yeah.
I think people
Totally.
expect me to have, warts on my face, and I don't know what they're expecting. And then they come in and they go, okay.
The witch we've
The
talked
witch,
about
yes.
before.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
just a mom? Okay. I think
right.
I can do this. And so
That's
when they calm down, it's great. So yeah.
And I do have to say, and a lot of like my friends and family that have listened to our podcast, they all say, I could listen to Karina talk all day. So you definitely do have a way with your little voice and your words.
I
It is
hate
very
my own
comforting.
voice, yeah.
It is very comforting and
well, thank
very calming. So that I agree with that. So, is there a waiting time before you're able to connect with someone who's passed?
No, I don't see it like that at all, actually. So some people who have passed have showed up that night that they've crossed, or the next day, days later. Sometimes the spirit isn't ready. They've got work to do on the other side. So it could be days, it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years. But it also, the other person on this side has to also be ready. So it's got to be a nice match, right?
Okay.
So no, I don't see it as any kind of time frame or not.
So you being someone who is able to connect with the other side, and you help people who come to see you connect with their loved ones who have passed.
Yeah.
You've said to us before that you're not able to see for yourself.
Yeah.
So, how do you handle grief?
Well,
Or how do you deal with it?
I've had a lot of family and stuff pass, and I have been able to connect with some of them. But it does get a little bit more difficult because I know too much, right?
Yes.
So for me, that's where I say that I can't see for myself. I probably could, but my, head gets in the way, and I start thinking, well, I already knew that about them, or, it just becomes really difficult. Whereas if I'm
So
reading,
you question whether
of
that
course
person
I
is
question
really
it. Absolutely.
with you.
Yeah, because it's, you get in your head and you're like, is that just a memory? I really do start thinking, is that just a memory I had of them? Or,
Are they trying to show me something?
are they trying to show me something and I'm
see.
missing it? My ego gets in the way, and I really can't see for myself at all. But for others, for a client, people usually come in here and I tell them right away, please don't say anything to me. I don't want to know anything about you at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much easier for me to do my job. And then, I can see much easier for them.
Okay, so
It's
what
not
about
for
for you then? How do you handle it?
Like grief?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I've always just been able to see spirits. So for me, I guess I always knew that they weren't really gone. They were always around me. So when someone would cross, even if it was a family or friend, I would just go, okay, they've crossed to the other side. I never saw it as something like they were gone forever and I was dying without them. It was,
Right.
I knew they were there. It was, they make themselves well known. And so I do think that I maybe grieve in a different way. It's not that I'm being insensitive, because I don't want to say it like that. I think sometimes, some family can think that I'm being insensitive, and I don't mean it like that at all. I just know that they're there and I can see them. And yes, I think that, I may have feelings of regret that I wish I would have, called that person more. I wish I would have, went to see them more or something. Of course, I have those regrets with family and friends if they've passed. But as far as grieving, I find that they are just around all the time. So I just don't see them as not around us or not gone.
Right.
So it's easier for me, I guess. I don't mean to sound insensitive. It's just, I mean that. I feel like they're always here. So,
Right. Yeah, no, I think that that's comforting in realizing that, because I've, with the exception obviously of physical touch, or I guess
Yeah.
physical touch would be the only thing, like the
Yeah.
physical touch and like just the physical being, they are always with us. And we've talked about this before
All the
in a
time,
number
yeah.
of our other episodes. Like,
Yeah.
they're right there, and they're just,
They are.
they really want
And-
us to know that they're
Yes,
there,
and
and they're
they do.
dying to connect with
Oh
us
my
again.
goodness, are they ever?
Yeah.
They are always trying to get our attention by passing all these signs to us. Remember, we talked about signs and
That's
how
right.
everybody can miss those signs, but they do try so hard to get our attention, to say, look, I'm not gone, I am in a different realm. So they're in a different world. It's energy, but
Yeah.
they still can move things, touch things, get us to, look at photographs, turn lights and things off. Like, they can do so much physically. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm always like, I know that they're there.
Right.
It's much easier for me, I guess, as a medium.
And so when you're in a session, is there a message that continually comes up, like that they're trying to, I mean, and you deal with, like you say, you take in on clients daily, so
Yeah.
you deal with a lot of past loved ones. So is there a
Yes.
message that you continually get that they're trying to pass on to us left here?
100%, I will say that there is a common theme, and one of the most important ones is for us not to feel guilty, because guilt is such a low vibration, and we talked about that last week. But it's because we end up feeling guilt that, like you said, like, they're not here in the physical world. Well, I wish I would have had that one more,
Yeah.
dinner with them, or one more hug. Like, we go through this guilt, and it just eats at us and it eats at us. And that's something that they don't want us to live like that. It's not helpful. They also don't want us to feel bad for not making it to them in time when they're passing. So do you know how many people will say, but I was supposed to go to the hospital, and I
Didn't get
I
there.
didn't get there. It was like, 2 hours. I was 2 hours away, and I didn't make it. And I said, the way that spirit comes across is this: they choose the timing of their passing. So the second that you leave the room, you've been there for, let's say, 3 days straight, nonstop.
Yeah.
But the one time you decide to leave the room to go down to the cafeteria at the hospital to go get a snack, they'll pass, because they don't want us to see them suffer, or sometimes it's too difficult for the person to actually watch their loved one pass. So they choose to do it when they're out of the room. So that's a really important one. That's a real common theme. It's like, please don't feel guilty that you didn't make it there. I chose to not have you there.
Right.
It's even happened in my own family with, my husband not making it to see someone on time. And I said, they didn't want you to see that.
Right.
They passed before you could get there. Another one is not to stress over the little things in life, because, we get so caught up in our daily grind of, oh my God, I got to make this appointment, and I got to get to the dentist, and I better get groceries, and I got to come home, and I better clean that house before I go to bed. And we worry about the littlest things, and we stress ourselves out, and it is the most unhealthy thing that we could do. And they don't want us to stress about this stuff. They want us to just be calm, try to just live with purpose through our day, rather than trying to just get to Friday, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a big one.
Yes.
The other one, really want to stress this one, but they always say, please don't stress about money. I know, and I talk about this all the time. It's that, don't stress about the money. Money is just an energy. If you
Yes.
believe in abundance, it will be there for you. Now, how many people waste their lives worrying about not having enough, or almost restricting themselves from living, because they're like, well, we can't spend that. I can't go to dinner and spend $200 on a dinner because I'm not going to have enough money. Whereas Spirit wants us to live for the moment. Go spend that money. Like we always say, eat the cake, go have that dinner.
Yes.
Spend the money, because you can't take it with you. And I'm going to say this because I feel like I have to. I worked with someone who had lost their spouse, and they, when they were together and married, they had saved and saved and saved for their retirement. And I mean, they saved up a lot of money, and neither of them would spend anything. And they said, okay, when we get to this age, we're going to go, we're going to travel, we're going to do everything. Well, one of the spouses passed, and then all of a sudden, this person looks at me and she says, well, I have all of this money, and I don't know what the heck to do with it now. She said, I wish we would have lived in the moment. I wish we would have taken that trip. I wish we would have had that nice dinner out or bought that thing.
Yeah.
Because you can't take it with you. Now she's left all alone to do what? With all this money. And I'm talking a lot of money.
And she probably doesn't even want it.
Exactly. Because what do you want to do? You don't want to go by yourself on these trips or anything like that. And her, family had kids and they had their own life. So she's stuck there going, great, I have all this money and I don't want to do anything with it.
Yeah.
And she was really remorseful that they didn't actually live. And look what happened. I remember saying to Nick after that session, I said, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, if we want to do something, we're doing it. And he said, I agree. And I said, I'm glad you think like that, because what I just learned from that session was you can't take it with you. Like, we just have to live in the moment. So what a great message to give, right?
And so can I just ask you about that particular session that you had? Like, was the person who passed over, like the spouse on the other side, what were they saying? Like, were they upset about it or like sorry for it? Or...
I would say they were sorry for it.
Right.
Because, they left behind their spouse who was now got all this money for nothing. And it was, the gentleman had come across from the other side and said, I wish I would have lived more in the moment and we should have spent that money. We should have lived a bit more.
Goosebumps. Oh.
So true though. Like, you think about our lives and, we're all so afraid of money, of like not having enough or feeling like you can't live or take that holiday because, oh no, we're going to be broke. Well, if you think like that, then you will be, because that's the law of attraction, right?
Yeah.
So for us, we just say the money's coming, there's abundance, and we just live our lives. Because I always say, if I were to cross tomorrow, right, I don't want to have regret. I want to say that I did all those things. I bought the things that I wanted. I did all those, nice dinners out or trips or whatever I want to do with my money. I want to use it and live for the moment and not feel like, oh my goodness, what a waste of my time.
Yeah. Wow.
The other one that they said was to not waste our time with worrying. Worry is such a useless emotion because we worry about things that we can't control, right?
Right.
And we all get stressed out and anxious about, especially the future. None of us can control the future. You can guide yourself there and use the law of attraction to get where you need to, but sometimes we can't control that stuff, and we worry about all these things for the future. And worrying for what? How many hours a day?
Ifs,
yeah,
right?
The what ifs. And how many hours a day do we waste on worrying?
Yeah.
When we could be using that to call our loved ones, call our friends, tell them how grateful you are for them or how much you love them. Like, we waste our time.
And I think we've talked about this before too, but worry is, I think, where all the anxiety comes from.
Yes,
it is. You can't control that, so you're constantly afraid.
Yep, it's exactly how it is. So why waste our time with worry?
Yeah.
And the other one that is also really important is not to fear death. And I'll say this honestly, like, I was always terrified of the other side and like, where do people go? And I was scared of death and not understanding it. But when I started opening up as a medium and seeing how amazing the other side is, sometimes I feel like I just want to go home. And I know that sounds crazy because I'm here and I have a family and everything, but sometimes I miss home. And it's that beautiful there. And I feel like there's nothing to fear about death. It's wonderful. And I wish everybody could see it that way.
Wow. So when people say, like, I wish I knew what heaven looks like, you actually see it?
Yeah. To a certain extent. I mean, I probably won't see everything until I cross, but yeah, from what I've been shown, it is.
Is it white fluffy clouds?
No.
What?
It's sorry, did I just strip you from that nice?
Just kidding.
That nice picture you had. Okay, sure, there's white clouds.
No, tell me.
It's magical. It's a place where the second I cross over in a session and I'm there with them, it's pure love. I can't even describe it to anyone else. I've never experienced that on this, in this physical world, because there's hate and there's negativity and stuff. But when you see the other side, it's just this warm, like the golden sun, right? That's surrounding you. When you're at the beach
With
and that
white fluffy
with
clouds.
white fluffy clouds and butterflies everywhere. And actually, there are a lot of butterflies,
I bet.
and there's a lot of flowers. I always see a lot of flowers, and
so
it's
is it just like
beautiful.
where they are, where they were in the physical world, but nicer?
Better, sort of. I guess that's a hard one to even explain. I think I'll say it like this. Some people think that when you cross, you're up in the sky. Well, they're not. They're down here around us. That's how they can touch things and whatnot in that different realm. So when I see them, I think they just kind of, from my perspective, I think they just kind of float around everywhere around their loved ones. So they're not in that same house or whatever. Well, they do hang out there, but I don't know if they stay there the whole time. I think they float around.
Wow, cool.
I know, it sounds so crazy. I wish I had all the answers. I don't. I only am shown so much because I won't get to see that until I cross.
That's right. And yeah, obviously.
But what I do see is freaking great.
Yes.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is, yeah. It just makes me feel so happy for
where your loved ones are.
Yeah.
Do you see why when I said that it's not that I'm being insensitive, I just feel what I see and where they are is so beautiful and magical that I want to be there. That's how wonderful it is. So I know that they're not gone, and that's why I feel like, wow, they're so lucky to be in that place. So, do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
Without being insensitive.
It sounds
It is
beautiful.
lovely.
Yes. So do you think that we ever stop grieving?
I would like to say yes, but no. I feel like grief will come in waves, right?
Yeah.
So I really do believe that every single one of us will grieve in some form or another in many moments of their life. It could be for, months at a time, and they could be fine, and then they start grieving again. It's like waves, like an ocean. And I feel like I think we all just learn to live without a loved one. Like, we don't have a choice. So I feel like we just learn to live without them. And my job, and thank goodness that I love what I do, is to help others realize that they aren't gone, that they are there to validate them. And again, I don't know anything about someone that comes to see me except for a first name and a phone number, and I love that. I don't want to know anything, because then their loved ones come in and prove to them with validation that
it's really them.
It is really them. These little quirky things, down to their favorite food, the color shirt that was their favorite shirt, or their house, like exactly how it was. They can give such incredible details. So they do send us all these like beautiful signs to get us to know that they're right there with us. And I love helping and giving that validation for others.
Wow. So now, in all the teachings and workshops and learning that I've done from you, you've made mention before in conversation that you're not actually sure what is worse. Is grieving someone who's passed worse than grieving someone who's still here? Like, for me, I just thought that grief had to do with when someone's passed. Can you explain? Like, what does that mean?
Well, from my own experience, I've been grieving some family that hasn't been in my life for probably about 12, 13 years. And I find that really, really difficult, because I feel like, when you're dealing with death on a daily basis, I find that I see how others are hurting for their loved ones that are passed, and I feel like they're just so full of sorrow and that they're missing that person in the physical form. But when someone's still alive and they choose not to have you a part of their life, I think it's really difficult. That's the same from my perspective. I think that grief is so similar. So, and to me, maybe seems a bit harder because I do see people grieving for their loved ones, and they know that it's over. There's no chance of ever having that last hug. Well, when you're grieving someone who's alive, you know that there's still that possibility, and it's never going to happen. You have to come to some sort of acceptance, and that is really hard to grieve.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does, and it sounds...
sucks. But...
that sounds awful.
And like just the other day, a very good friend of mine had said this to me, and I think this is where this hit home for me. But I had said that exact same thing. I don't know what's harder, is grieving someone who's, actually passed, or someone who's alive. And she said, you know what though, Karina? She said it's, that's like asking someone if it's worse to lose someone suddenly or someone slowly. She's like, there is no right answer. And I said, good point. Because there is no right answer to that. I don't know what's worse.
Right.
Grief is grief, and grief sucks, and it hurts. And I think the best advice I can give for everyone tonight, especially, working as a healer and also from spirit, is just for us to live our lives as if there was no tomorrow. Like, live our lives with purpose, and that cheesy saying, but make every day count.
Yes.
Let go of the past. We can't control the past. We can only learn from it. We can't go backwards. We can only go ahead. Also, not to let guilt, worry, or fear rob us from our happiness in this life. What a waste of emotion.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, you guys, how, even talking about something as heavy and sad as grief, how nice does Karina make this? It's comforting to hear this from you. So again, thank you for talking to us tonight. So I guess, you guys, what's important here, I think, is that we all grieve in a different way. Grief is a very personal process. So one of the things that's very important here is to don't let someone else's grieving process dictate how you need to handle it or how you should deal with yours. Do what feels right for you and take the time that you need. And we're all going to go through those stages that Karina mentioned earlier. It doesn't need to follow any particular time frame, or it doesn't need to be set in stone. So take your own time. Grieve how you need to grieve. And I guess just remember that they're always with us. They are always with us, and they want nothing more than to be with us. So again, pay attention to the signs. Whew! I just got goosebumps again.
I love that. They're here.
Oh my gosh. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Divine Messages podcast. I am T, and together with Karina, we want to say, oh, and for real, this time, together right here.
Yes, we
High
are
five.
together. Yes.
We want to say thank you,
Finally.
good night, and we'll see you next time. Karina,
Yes.
see you later.
Good night.
Good night. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on our own interpretation. We can in no way be held responsible for the actions of our followers.